Welcome to Toot Your Own Horn Music Matters. Today I have the wonderful Melissa Kindy with me. Hello, Melissa.
Hey Lisa, how's it going?
It's going great. I am so happy to have you on this podcast, and you are just doing amazing stuff. And I can't wait for you to share your story with our audience. How did you choose your instrument? Tell us, please.
It's kind of funny. Okay, so my first kind of formal introduction to music was in elementary school when we did recorders in fourth and fifth grade. And I was like, oh, this is really fun. So I was like, maybe I'll do band in middle school. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody was like, oh, the clarinet is just like the recorder. I was like, okay, sounds good. Newsflash, it's not just like the recorder. It's a bit trickier. But that's literally how I got started on clarinet. Like my school didn't have those like instrument testing sessions that a lot of the schools do now. So it was just pretty much whatever you decided to pick up was what you were going with.
So, literally, the director said, if you want to join the band, tell us what you want to play, and then told you where to go get it. And that was it.
Yep.
There was no
Yep.
trying anything.
Yep. No. It was just free for all kind of. Yeah, so I started sixth grade, beginner band, all of that business. My dad swears that the first time I put the clarinet together, I didn't make a single squeak, and I don't know if I believe him, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a funny thing. But I distinctly remember like my first memory with a clarinet was my dad had like brought it home. It was a plastic Vito, the Resitone, brought it home in the case, and I was like looking at the directions, and I was like, okay, so this part goes with this part. And like it's like my first memory of like holding a clarinet was putting it together.
Do you have a memory of like what was exciting to you about it, or not so much so, or?
I mean, it was something new for sure. Like, obviously, I had been exposed to music and like the whole concept of fingerings, like putting certain fingering patterns together to create certain pitches. So it was just like a new instrument of doing that, and obviously a lot more complex. I was like, "Ooh, this is like a big deal."
Yeah.
I've always been kind of that overachiever type A personality. So, I was, as soon as I could put the thing in my mouth, I was in that essential elements book, like trying to figure out, okay, so this is the fingering and these are the little tunes. And it's always kind of ahead of the game on that. I wasn't one of those slacker students and who didn't want to practice. I was always like, oh, let me go try and see what more I can do with this thing. Obviously progressed like fairly quickly in that sense.
Yeah.
And after beginner band, I was this one girl and I kept like swapping first and second chairs like all the way through seventh and eighth grade. We would swap back and forth. There was that little healthy dose of competition that can be really motivating as well. I've learned as I've grown, I'm a very externally motivated.
Yeah.
So that shows that back then too. Seventh grade, I was my second year of playing. I auditioned for all county for the first time, so that was a terrifying thing. And I got in. I was like third to last chair, but I was in it, and it was a very cool experience. I mean, to this day, like honor bands was definitely one of the highlights of my time playing, in middle and high school. Like, getting to meet, all these other players from other schools. And so for all county, it was all across the county. The all county bands got to play better music than we did. So it was way more fun. And with the middle schools, they like to do things like the Harry Potter stuff, and so things that were really fun for the students to play, and just kind of like it was also a lot larger. Like the all county band was really really big, and so to kind of experience being in such a large ensemble was a really cool experience for the first time too.
Why is that? What is it about playing in ensembles, especially when you're new to it? What is it that is so special?
Well, I mean, I was playing in bands like in school, but with the all county one, the being like really big, it was like just so much more power to them. But playing an ensemble generally, just getting to, have all these different parts that come together to create this cohesive whole is just a very cool experience. I got my first intermediate clarinet. I'm going into eighth grade, so it was just I don't remember the exact model, but it was a wooden intermediate Selmer. I went to high school, started marching band. It was a brand new experience. I'm not good with heat, despite the fact living and growing up in Florida. You think I'd be acclimated to it. I always say I did not do well in it. I would, get dizzy a lot. Anyways, so it's like once you got through band camp, the rest of marching band was super fun. Just hanging out with everybody and having that nice little community to
Mhm.
play with. Okay, this is a good story. My freshman year, so at my high school, we had two concert bands. So we had like a higher one and
Yep.
a lower one. As freshman was in the lower one,
Mhm.
and I was like first chair of clarinets in that freshman band. I just got really invested, like with my friends. They would like have trouble with their parts, and I would like stay in the band room at lunch and help them with their parts. And then like I went to my band director one day and I was like, "Hey, can I do like a sectional thing where we work on all our parts together?" Because I was like technically first chair, so I'm like, okay, I think I can like ask to do this. He's like, "Oh yeah, go for it, go for it." That was kind of like my first venture into teaching
Mhm.
in a way, which leads me into sophomore year. So I was actually one of the clarinet section leaders for marching band my sophomore year, which was kind of a big deal because the sophomores didn't get that role a lot of the time. Sophomore year was the first time that I auditioned for All-State. And in Florida, they have the All-State band split into freshman, sophomore, and then junior, senior. So I was auditioning for the freshman, sophomore one. And I wasn't taking any formal lessons at this point still, but I worked with my band director. He like took a whole bunch of time to, listen to me after school and help me out and get prepared for that. And I auditioned and I actually got in, which was that was a big, 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 big deal. So at that point, I was like, this is cool. All state was, all county on the next
Mhm.
level, which is such a cool experience that I was like, that was that point when I was like, I think I want to do like music, like as my future career type of thing, because I'm really into it. So my parents are like, okay, so she's kind of serious about this. So we started looking for lessons, and that's how I met, Lynn Musco at Stetson. She was about 30 minutes from us. So started taking with her, and when I learned that her job was to teach clarinet, like I just did not know that was a thing. I was like, wait, you can have a career like helping people get better at clarinet. And that was like an instantaneous, like, that's what I'm gonna do.
Did she inspire that because you liked her so much?
As soon as I realized that that was a career option, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. Like, because I was already kind of doing those things, as I mentioned, helping my friends with their parts and doing sectionals and all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I don't know, I already knew in some way or another that I didn't want to be a band director. Like, I didn't care about the other instruments, I just cared about the clarinet. Like, so when I was like, oh, you can have a job like just teaching clarinet, bam. So obviously I learned about all that kind of goes into that path as far as like you need a doctorate, blah blah blah. I was like, okay, so here's my next, forever parts of my life laid out for me, this checklist. Yeah, so I continued through high school with that in mind. So continued with the all-state thing and helping at school and taking private lessons. So that obviously jump started a lot of progress for me, having that formal instruction space, and then obviously thinking about going to college and all of that business.
Where'd you go to college and tell us about that?
Since I was in Florida, I actually only auditioned for FSU and Stetson. Ended up going to Stetson's and continued studying with Lynn. And, I was a performance major because, again, I knew I didn't want to be a band director. So I was not going the music ed route. You start as a music major, you're taking theory one, ear training, class piano, things like that. And when I came home for Christmas, because we couldn't stay in the dorms, and I was so not like mad, but like kind of like roar at my parents. I was like, why didn't you make me take any piano lessons growing up? I suck at this and I don't like sucking at it. It's very frustrating. It's kind of funny. But yeah, I learned a lot of things. I never took any sort of like AP music theory or anything while I was in high school. That was like my first introduction to music theory and like all of that. Ear training was terrible. My ear was not good. I had to work very hard for that one credit class. But it was honestly like with all the work that went into it, it was just so great because like I just knew that like this is the path that I was doing and these are the things that I need to be successful. And so I'm just doing the things that I needed to do, and
I don't know if there's any truth to the ear training thing because I also really struggled with ear training and I felt so badly about how hard I had to work at it because I felt as though I was a fairly accomplished musician and didn't understand why I was so poor at it. And maybe this is just anecdotal to make me feel better, but I've heard more than once somebody say that people who struggle with it are tend to be more musical.
Oh, that's interesting. Used my music theory knowledge to
Mhm.
get through ear training. I was like, okay, that note, that bass note went down. I don't know how far it went down, but this was the chord before it. So it's very likely that this is the chord, and therefore that would be the note. So it's kind of made my way through that. Actually, freshman year is also when I started like formally teaching lessons. I went back to my old middle school. It wasn't with my band director. There was another band director there at that time, but I started working with some of his students
Mhm.
and delving into the land of teaching fundamentals was terrifying. I was like, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. And it was just kind of a lot of trial and error as far as how to phrase things to it's like I know what I want them to do, but how do I get them to understand what I want them to do? And so going through that initial process was it was tough. Like I honestly prepped a lot for those lessons. I did a lot of research on like pedagogy and things like that because I wanted to be good at it because I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Like I need to get better at it. So that's actually when I started formally teaching was the first year of college too.
And that also must have been a huge spark for you.
Yeah, it was very cool because that was the first time I was experiencing like making a suggestion fundamentally especially and having it change how they were playing and especially because I did have one who was like a very beginner. So starting from super basics as far as even like just putting your hands together and realizing like how important every little thing getting set up was to get them rolling.
Tell us about your performing during this period of time because now you started as a performance major and now
Mhm.
you are still wanting to play, but now you're
Mhm.
teaching. And how was that relationship between performance and teaching?
When I first started teaching, and it's true to this day, but I noticed when I was teaching some of the aspects that I was like researching and working on with my students fundamentally, I was able to kind of consider that in my own playing. And then vice versa of like things that I would be working on in my own playing, like, oh, maybe I should try that with a student. So it was very cyclical for me. And it still is. I find that my playing very much influences my teaching and vice versa. So I have always juggled both and find it benefits me the most for sure. So it was definitely an enhancement to both sides when I was doing both.
Awesome. So what happens next?
Well, continued through college. I joined SAI, which is the music fraternity for women, which is cool now because I'm now a faculty advisor here at my school. So it's full circle there. We come up to around junior year, start thinking about grad schools and whatnot. Oh, no, no, no. Step back 1 second. I went to the Buffet Summer Clarinet Academy right before my sophomore year of college. And that was my first time experiencing other college students from around the country.
Yeah.
And that was a wake-up call. I was like, oh, because I was very much like big fish, little pond type of situation at my school, which was great. Like it was everything that I needed to like kind of build my confidence and get really great opportunities. But
Right.
like seeing the level of students from across the country at this, summer thing was just like, oh, like I need to be busting here so that I can, get into a good grad school and be competitive and all of that. So that was a really big wake up call for me at that point.
Was that a downer or a motivator?
Oh, motivator for sure.
Awesome.
For sure. Yeah. I didn't feel like I didn't belong there. I felt like I was definitely part of the group, but just seeing, all of these people who were basically in the same situation I was and the levels they were at, I was like, oh, like I should be, aspiring to that. I guess that brings us up to starting to look at grad schools, figuring out where to go. It was a very overwhelming process because there's just so many options and I worked a lot off of recommendations from other people and obviously utilizing my teacher as a source of information as well. I ended up applying to five schools, I think. Man, it feels so long ago now. It really came down to two schools. North Carolina, Greensboro, and Michigan were like the top two, like ones I got into, and then the ones I was really interested in pursuing. Funny little segue here. When the night before, so my audition at North Carolina, Greensboro was my last master's audition. Night before the audition, I had gotten there. I was staying, Sean Copeland was still in the area there. I was staying
Yeah.
with him, and we went to like their band concert that night. Their auditorium has these like, the short steps, but then like a long way until the next one. So there's
Oh,
not
no.
like completely normal steps. I ended up tripping and I put my hands out and
Oh,
I jammed my finger
oh,
into a step. And oh my gosh, it was just throbbing the entire night. Next morning, it's like swollen and bruised and like super painful. And I'm like, well, like I'm here. I guess I'm just gonna suck it up and deal with
oh
it.
my
So
God.
yeah, so I went into my audition. I was like playing and like I'd stop playing and like shake out my hand because like it hurts so bad. And they were asking me, they're like, "Oh, do you have like wrist issues?" I'm like, "No, no, no, I just like jammed my finger really bad last night. Like it's fine. I'll make it." But by the time I got home, the end of the next day, like it wasn't getting any better. So my mom took me to the ER and we got it X-rayed, and sure enough, I had actually broken my finger.
Oh,
It's actually
Melissa.
still a little crooked. Yeah.
Oh,
That was a whole thing because this is the last semester of my college experience, and I had broken my finger that I need to play the clarinet. I ended up having to actually have surgery on it. There was like a piece of bone that needed to be like kind of fused back together, so they had to put like pins in it. I was in a soft cast for like a month. I had to push my senior recital back to like the week before graduation. Even with that, I only had like 2 weeks where I was able to like resume playing and relearn on my rep. And that
that's
was just,
insane. Your
it
tolerance
was
for pain has to
insane.
be really high.
I guess it is like
Apparently so, to be able
right,
to have done
right.
that. That's amazing.
Um, but what was interesting about the senior recital experience is like, it's such a big deal
Yes.
in undergrad and such a stressful thing. But because of the situation I was in, it actually took a lot of pressure off in a
Oh,
weird way.
I
It's
just have
gonna
to
be
think,
what it's gonna be.
yeah.
Right, right. So it was actually a little less stressful than I thought it was gonna be originally. But I ended up going to Michigan for grad school. It was a very, very, very hard decision. In my gut, I was like, I just got to do it. I auditioned for Michigan because I worked with Dan Gilbert at the Buffet Academy. And when I auditioned, I got put into Chad Burroughs' studio. And I
Yeah,
knew nothing about this man at this point. I was like, who is this person? So,
right.
but even so, I still had this gut feeling that I was like, I feel like Michigan is where I need to be. And I was like, you know what? If he's teaching at Michigan, there's no way that he's going to be a bad teacher. So
Right.
I just like put my faith in it. And honestly, it was the best decision I could have made because I had such a good time working with Chad and we just clicked really well. He just really elevated a lot of my playing in so many ways in such a short time. It was great. I was really sad that the master's degree was only 2 years because I'm like, I just want to stay longer. Coming from Stetson, going to the University of Michigan, that was a huge change. Really big program, super talented students. I mean, there were undergrads that could honestly play better than me, and that was another thing, like very similar to what I experienced at the Buffet Academy. It was very motivating to be like, okay, we need to like work. We need to work.
What do you think you can attribute your positive energy around realizing that you need to raise your own bar?
In that Buffet Academy experience in my time in Michigan, there was never like people, trying to butt heads and like beat each other and stuff. It was all just everyone trying to do their best and like so I think that really helped. And I honestly see that in the clarinet community as a whole of everyone being like very supportive for the majority. And that's something I talk about is just like I don't know about those other instruments, but this clarinet community is really, really great and very supportive, and I'm really grateful for that because it can be a very intimidating and a very intense profession for sure. The master's was my favorite part of school that I did because you didn't have to do any of the undergrad, like the gen eds or anything like that. Like you got to just focus on your area. You just got to do what you wanted to do. It was also kind of strange because like the first year of the master, like I said, it was a 2-year program. The first year of the master's was very much like acclimating to this new environment.
Mm.
And then the second year was preparing to leave it because of a doctorate. I had planned to just go straight through. And I know some people do take breaks in between degrees. I decided that was not for me because I knew, from the age of 16, I was like, this is my checklist. I was
Right.
like, I need to get these things done to get to the career that I want. And I was really nervous about the idea of like stepping away and like losing that momentum, just the intensity of school.
Right.
Um, and stepping away, working to, build something to sustain me, financially and whatnot, and then having to abandon that to go back to school. I
Right.
just felt like there were too many variables. I'm like, let me just, truck
Keep
on
going.
through. So I did plan to go straight into my doctorate. I was doing those auditions my second year of my master's. I auditioned for 4 programs for the doctorate, I think. And Eastman was honestly like my stretch school. And it's funny because that's actually where I ended up going, which is just a very cool experience to kind of like have that be, the stretch school and then have it actually happen. Like you just never know. What really helped, and I recommend this to everybody, is if you're looking at, grad schools or doctoral programs, like going and taking lessons with the professors to make sure that you click. Like I got very lucky in that chat and I clicked so well. I wasn't gonna risk that with the doctorate, so I made sure. I actually went to the Maristone Festival up in Washington, studied with Ken Grant up there, where I auditioned at Eastman, and I had gone down to UMKC in Missouri to take a lesson with Jane Carl before doing that audition and all of that. No drama with these auditions. I didn't break anything. I actually remember like when I got to Eastman for my audition and I was like walking around the building, had my audition, and then I called Chad like right after and I was like, I think I actually want to go here because I wasn't sure that was going to be the right atmosphere for me. It kind of comes off very
Elite.
kind of haughty a little
Right.
bit. Yeah, very. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to be like the right vibe for me. But like, by the time I was done with the day, I was like, I think I actually want to come here. So it was just funny how sometimes you have that gut reaction,
Yeah.
you know. As soon as I got the acceptance letter and then I got, my financial offer letter from Eastman and I had like, a TA and a pretty significant scholarship. It didn't cover everything, but it was pretty significant. Like, okay, like done deal. That's where I'm going. So that was very cool. So then I moved to Rochester, started the doctorate. So it was a 3-year program. I ended up taking 4 years.
Mhm.
I was getting towards the end and I was just very, very overwhelmed and honestly starting to get burnt out because it was a lot. And so I decided to take another year and spread out kind of those last big things, the lecture recital, the comps, except the comps, I don't even want to talk about. The comps were my worst nightmare. Like, I have never been great at recalling specific information on demand.
Mhm.
So it's literally my worst nightmare. So many nightmares about this test. I had nightmares about this test up to 2 years after I took the test.
Oh, wow.
The nightmare was that I had to take another portion of the test to keep my degree.
Thank God that's wrong. No.
It's terrible. Oh, so difficult. But yeah, but my time at Eastman was great. The undergrads, and I don't want to like generalize, but a lot of the undergrads were kind of, they had fairly big egos,
Right.
but they also don't know better. This is the only place they went.
Right.
Eastman has such a great reputation. So, they're just in their own little bubble and they don't know. But nevertheless, that kind of attitude kind of turns me off.
Right.
But the grad students were amazing. Like I made such good friends, such talented, intelligent people that I still like respect so much to this day. And I love seeing what everyone's doing. It's just so inspiring. And kind of the same thing that we've talked about previously, like it really motivated me. In this way, it was more academically, like I felt behind academically in comparison to everyone else. And I was like, I don't like feeling like this, so I'm going to work on it. And we're going to get through. And we did. We made it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I ended up finishing. I didn't have a job lined up or anything, so I decided to move back to Florida, kind of utilize whatever connections I had down there. It ended up being a very good choice. So the first year, this was 2018, I moved back down. So that first year, I was still working a retail job. I like transferred Bath and Body Works from New York to Florida, and started working, getting out there, teaching lessons. Going out to schools was a really big thing. There was actually a point I was driving out to 10 schools a week and doing like sectional work and after school lessons and things like that. And I was very proud of like building that up to a point where I was, sustaining myself on, primarily music work. It was very cool. And then I landed my first adjunct position for the fall of 2019. And about like a month or two into that semester, I actually picked up another one. So I was teaching at two schools and they were in Daytona. I was so lucky. Those first two jobs, they were right in Daytona where I was. And it was just really exciting because I was like, oh, I'm doing the thing that I wanted to do. Like this is my first office that I get to teach in, and these are my first students and all of that. However, as you heard me say, that was fall of 2019. So first year of teaching was a mess with the whole COVID thing in the spring, and it was miserable. It was miserable. Just, to this day, I'm like, I do not want to do Zoom lessons. Traumatized. Just, it was about, I think, 2021. I didn't put two and two together at this point, but COVID actually like affected me mentally a lot more than I realized. But I was really struggling at this point. I was like, I'm not. I don't feel inspired at this point. Like, I don't know if this whole higher ed thing is what I want to keep pursuing, especially after all the applications I'd been putting in and like they felt like they weren't going anywhere. And I just like, I wasn't feeling good about it. I had gone up to Michigan sometime around that time and I had brunch with Chad and I was talking about it. I'm like, I just, I don't know. I'm not sure.
So that was the
So
first time that you weren't sure if your decision making was actually working.
yes, yes. I didn't know what I would do if I didn't do that, but I was just like, I just don't know if I want to keep pursuing this because it was just I just felt so bleh about everything. Like it's like I didn't even care that much anymore, which was just strange. Looking back now, I can put two and two together that like COVID just had a longer mental effect on me. But what really helped is like I kind of went into problem solving mode. I was like, okay, so like these applications for these jobs aren't going anywhere. So let me like really get really scrutinous with my CV. I'm like, okay, you know what? My performance area is pretty empty. Like we could really use a boost there. So I started putting a lot more focus on performing. I started really digging, putting my name out for gigs, getting on sub lists for orchestras. Like I started playing with Jacksonville Symphony up there. And honestly, like once I started playing regularly again, like the whole spark came back.
Cool.
And I was like, okay, so now like I'm really excited about teaching again. I'm loving getting to play on a regular basis, especially with these really great ensembles. Like Jacksonville Symphony is incredible. It was just a great time. I remember I was really stressed going in that first rehearsal with them. I was just like, oh, because it was the first professional orchestra I ever played with. I was like, oh yeah, that thing where, teaching and playing and playing and teaching completely re-sparked me. I had the adjunct thing going, and so adding on the performance stuff, just having all of that, it really helped. And that's honestly when I got my first Zoom interview from an application. And so that was, reinforcement that okay, this is the right direction that I'm going with this.
Right.
Picked up a job during COVID because, lost all the music work.
Right.
So I started working at the Hand and Stone Spa. I don't know, again, like I'm very like type A ambitious person. So I did really well at my job. I ended up being promoted to assistant manager. So like it was the whole thing.
Right.
Which I love that job, but I was like, it was just too hard to juggle the adjuncting, the gigging with that job. And I was like, okay, something needs to give. So I had to let that job go, but to make up for that income, I like picked up, I was teaching at 4 colleges last year.
Wow.
4. It was exhausting, but I could say all my income was coming from music, which was still cool. All the hustle, I think anyone who has done adjunct work can say the same. It's a lot of hustle for not a lot of pay or benefits or anything like that. But that was last year, and I got my first finalist interview. Went out in not this past January, the year before. Went out to Washington State for a finalist for that job, that was a very cool experience to get to do like the whole finalist visit. Ended up not getting it, but that's okay. It was a great experience. And then I got asked to do a Zoom interview. This was a summer search, but it was for Nicholls. Got the Zoom interview, and then became a finalist, but because it was summer, they weren't doing on-campus visits. So we did actually everything over Zoom as far as the teaching. Like I worked with the students over Zoom. I did like a little lecture over Zoom, did all the interview questions, everything on Zoom, which was nice because I didn't have to worry about the travel, but
Right.
it also would have been nice to like see the area. Obviously, I ended up getting it, which was a huge deal. The head of my search committee, who is now my faculty mentor for this first year, he was telling me about like when he called me to offer me the position, like I didn't say anything for a couple seconds, and I didn't realize that it was that long because in my head I like responded, but I guess I was processing. He's like, you didn't respond for a couple of seconds. I got really worried. Just
Oh, so funny.
it's a big, big, big moment because obviously, I said since I was 16, like that was the goal. Mhm.
So you invested 18 years of your life for this outcome and you finally got it. That's a big milestone.
Yes, yes, it was. So I got offered the job, and then it was a month before school started. So like my dad and I had to come out and find me a place to live. Went back to Florida 2 weeks later, moved me here to Thibodaux, and Thibodaux is in the middle of nowhere. It's in the Bayou region, South Louisiana, just small, not like tiny, but a small town. So I was like, okay, here we go. The job has been everything that I've wanted. Like there's a lot of parallels to my time at Stetson. It's a small program, so it has a very large sense of community. It engages a lot with the community of the town. My colleagues are like not just colleagues, like they're my good friends now, and just it's just been everything I could have wanted. My students have been so receptive to me coming into this position and just being very flexible to adjusting to a new teacher. And it's been great. Just like literal dream come true. It's really cool because I'm about equidistant from New Orleans and Baton Rouge. It's about an hour and 10 minutes to each. So I've been able to gig with the symphonies in both cities. I'm actually playing with LPO again next week. So I'm doing, the teaching and the playing, and I'm just like, I'm good. We're good.
And
So
after 18 years, if I were to ask you what is the motivation for wanting to be in this position, what would you tell me?
the results of teaching, like seeing students get something and that they weren't able to do before, and getting them to improve in a way that they maybe didn't know that they could. I've always said that I wasn't looking for a job where everyone was super talented and blah. Like I get so much out of taking, these more average level players and seeing how far I can take them. Like it's so rewarding to see that. I have seniors doing recitals this semester, so I just started teaching them last semester, but just to see how much they've improved and like feeling them be prepared to take on this big thing of doing a recital. Numbers are still down for our school post COVID, so we only have 4 clarinets in the studio right now. Got 3 more coming in, so
Awesome.
but I decided, as like it would be very cool to do a quartet on these senior recitals. So we've got the two that are giving their recitals, and then we have two sophomores. The levels are very, very different, but I mean, they're all friends. They get along. So, but it's been, very cool to see those younger ones really step up and the older ones kind of like be helping them as well. And to see that ensemble kind of become more cohesive and just it was a couple of weeks ago I actually got a little emotional. I'm like, you guys have just like grown so much this semester, and it's just so cool to see. And that's everything that I want out of, that's why we teach is for the students, not for us.
Well, inspiring and educating is really a sustainable mission for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Inspiring.
very cool to see kind of a full circle thing.
Yeah. If someone was listening to this podcast and just loved your story, what would you say to them to get them to try to play a wind instrument right now?
I would just think about the sense of community in playing an instrument in general, but I think with wind instruments, you have a few more opportunities to do that, especially like if you're in high school, like marching band is way more than just marching band. Like you're spending so much time with this group of people that they like really become your family. And I honestly, I have friendships from high school, 20 plus years ago that I'm still close with today because of that relationship that was built in that. And not to say that, string players or piano players, it's just a different setting. The kind of experiences you have as a wind player versus some of the other instruments, I think. And I've had a really good time. I think it's also very interesting to put together all of these different, playing a wind instrument is so physical. So kind of to tie that in with the mental aspect of being a musician as well. Honestly, I take a lot better care of myself physically because of what I have to do for work. So I don't know, it kind of becomes like part of who you are, I think. And I can't say if that's, more or less true for other instrument groups. It's just what I've experienced.